sad, and one thing that I've always, and I'll always hold near and dear to my heart is I'll never sacrifice my morals for money or for special interests, because that's what's ruining the country, honestly.
That's right.
So, whenever I share with younger people, because I encourage young folks to get into politics and get into these realms of things, and I share that with them. So the generation of knowledge, I make sure to try to pass that down to others as well.
Firstly is thank you to all of the individuals that have come before us to make an impact.
Yes.
You all have created such a positive change with how us young people are able to live our lives, and you've taught us to hold our ground and to stay persistent with the action that we choose to take. And I think that the beauty and the luxury of us right now is we're able to see how amazing freedom fighters before us have been able to make change in the 21st century. And so it's a very perspective look. We're looking into basically, we're kind of looking into the future of how our actions are able to take change. But unfortunately, many of the people before us, they weren't able to see how, their speeches and their advocacy was able to take effect now. So I'm very grateful that we're able to see how their fight has been able to make a positive impact for us today. And another thing too is that the ability to just once again hold our ground in these spaces, and as we mentioned, not sacrificing our morals.
Being in fun is very useful for conveying, I'm actually calm right now, and I want to be here, and this is inspiring to me. But also getting to work actually helps you get things enact. Like things that start to happen is because of your work.
That's right.
So finding that balance and still being younger is definitely a challenge. So I've had a lot of lessons with my father, D'Artagnan Hill. He's in the crowd if you would raise your hand. That's the best man in the world right there. Me and my father have had so many lessons about when it is time to cut off the fun and when it is time to get to work and when it's time to cut off the work and get to fun. So, yeah, I just want to thank my father for that.
I love that, and I can't think of the exact quote, but I want to build on that. So my grandma would always tell me something along the lines of if you're gonna pray, you gotta put your boots to the ground, you gotta do the things that tangibly make it happen. You can't just want it and say that you want it and then not do the things to tangibly get it. So that was something that I learned from her, but something that this question is bringing up for me is that I'm realizing that in my community, I learned very young that the people that were around me that were older were not people that I wanted to learn to be like, they were people I did not want to be like. And as I've gotten older, I've realized how much of a loss there has been in my community from the opioid epidemic. And the people in my family, I come from coal miners, I come from factory workers, many of them did not become elders. So we have gaps in our community where the people who are most impacted by oppression are the people who do not get to pass down what they learned because they don't get to see where their lineage has grown. So there are many of us who I think want to learn more from our elders, but who don't really have access to them as much. But as I moved to Louisville, I have been able to be adopted by some wonderful little groups. So I will say that I have found it, but that it's been something I've had to find. And then I think a lot of young people need to be very intentional about who we're listening to and who we're listening to.
Lovely critical reflection. So stand in that line. I want to ask you all, additionally, what have you learned from yourselves? So when you look within and dig deep, what are some of the things that resonate, that keep you moving forward, despite loss that Bill just mentioned, despite so many of the other challenges that you all have acknowledged? What have you learned from yourselves that keeps you moving?
Me personally, looking back when I ran for mayor, I didn't win that election, which was fine, because at the end of the day, I still won, and I did. Even when before my last city commission election, I missed it just by a couple hundred votes, and now I know what I got to do next time to make sure I'm in there.
That's right.
So I'm looking forward to that. And one thing I learned about myself is that I'm strong. I'm able, and I can do it. And even if I don't win an election per se, I still win because I win the support of the community. I grow more, I learn more, and I just become better.
Something that keeps me moving forward is my growth. I can see, so on our YouTube or Instagram, My Decisions with Ebony, you can go back and watch yourself. Like the purpose of the social media is not to make us become popular. You can all follow. Anyways, it's not, the purpose of it is not to make us popular, but more for documentation. So if you go back in like 2020, 2021 era, you can see me doing this exact same thing and not being able to talk. So watching those videos back and just like seeing how much or how far I've grown and being able to just share my ideas is definitely playing a part in why I'm still growing and learning as an individual.
In thinking about what I learned for myself, I'm going to draw, so I wrote 2 books last year, and they both are poetry books, and I wrote them to try to unpack some political things in a way that is not so overt and to distribute it to my community. And it reached them, it did, I got a lot of good feedback. But writing 2 books, it's a lot of self-reflection that goes into that, and especially poetry. But what I ended up taking out of it more than anything is that, yes, I have things that I've learned for myself, but also I'm a part of this greater source that we all come from, and ultimately I can learn about myself through the people around me, through the nature around me, through everything around me, because I'm not as separate from it as I have been made to believe in a lot of ways. So I think there's a lot of power in recognizing that, again, we all come from this same source, we all come from this same love, and we all build together to learn from each other. And so, of course, I've learned from myself, but I've also learned about myself through everyone else, and I think that's just as important too.
Absolutely, and I think that something I've learned is just that individual power is real, and you don't have to be standing beside 100 people to make change. Being a student, I have to tell myself that every single day, because at the end of the day, you are your own best advocate. And so going into classrooms, sending emails to the cafeteria, to professors, trying to make change within my school, all of that sometimes falls on me as an individual to see the change, to be the change I want to see. And I think that when you have that, you're able to have a lot more gratitude for the spaces that you do find, like having organizations and having assemblies and having governors or whoever you could go to make change as a greater good. But having that individual power is just so impactful. And I also think that education is another thing that kind of plays into having that power as well. Working with other people, understanding their point of view, all of those things have kind of allowed me to see how I can continue to make change for the future years.
You may not think that they hear your voice, you may not think that they've heard you or know what you're talking about, but one thing I can add is that the city of Paducah, even though I didn't win the election, they implemented things that were in my priorities for that election, such as fixing our south side, getting rid of dilapidated buildings, enhancing our sewer infrastructure. So it may not look like they're listening, but they're listening to you, and I'll tell you that.
That's right.
I think it's critical to reinforce what you all have mentioned, right? Even in your lesson learned, I won't call it a loss, right? Your lessons learned, you're informing yourself on how to move forward. And as you just mentioned, right, the city is still moving forward with progress that you wanted to see. But across all of you all, it's been intentional and critical self